Welcome to Bookings and Bottles, the podcast for travel professionals who want a little bit more than just bookings. They want a little bit of wine and a lot of wisdom. I'm your host, Simone Snedoff, the founder of Ontologic, workflow curator, and habit specialist. Today, I'm joined by a very, very special someone at the table. Her name is Singita. She is the founder of The Business Uncle. And this is basically where she supports organizations to improve their operations, strengthen their internal structures, and reduce operational strain. Her work really focuses on helping capable teams turn strategy into practical, workable execution. So let's welcome Sangita to our podcast. Welcome.
Hi, and thank you so much for having me.
It's just been such a wonderful journey that we've been on together. And I'm so happy to have you on the show. So thank you again for making time for me.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to this. We've known each other for I think like 2 years now, and getting to know you and getting to see you on this platform has been really exciting. So I'm excited to finally get to be on the podcast myself.
So this is a podcast about the travel industry. What you offer is services that the travel industry could use.
Yeah.
So looking at the travel industry is all about execution and less about strategy. What I'd like to understand is where would you say is a good place to start when developing a strategy, especially for the travel industry? Do you have any tips for us? Any insight that you could potentially share?
Okay, yeah. So when I look at it and I look at strategy specifically with the tourism industry, it is one of the industries I work with. I
Perfect.
define the word strategy. So that's basically a game plan and basically how I'm going to get from point A to point B. So when we start with developing a strategy, I would always ask, what is your end goal? Define that first, and then we work backwards. So where am I right now in order for me to get to where I want to go? Specifically for the tourism industry, well, depends on like your actual business. So I'll use like a guest house, for example. Let's say their goal is to increase revenue by 10%. Would ask them, okay, right now, where are you today? Who are your clients or who are your guests? What are you currently charging for what you offer? What are you offering as well? And then from there, build out the steps basically on how we're going to get to that final point. And that's basically what a strategy is and how one should look at it, and also how one should start out developing that strategy.
And thank you so much for that insight. When you're speaking about strategy, I'm so grateful that you broke it down for us because when we use the term strategy, a lot of people don't even know where to start. It reminds me when I used to work on ships and we would sell art, and my auctioneer would tell us, break down the goals. I love that you're saying begin with the end in mind. Basically, it's like if I want to sell $10,000 worth of art, you have to break it down into how many people then do I need to speak to in order to get that sales. And then it means, breaking it down more and more and more until you have that conversion rate. So it's really the strategy is about breaking it down into its most fundamental form and then working your way up. So thank you so much for sharing
Yeah,
that. That really is something that my listeners can take away already from the beginning of this episode.
definitely. Yeah.
Again, congratulations. You've started this business and it's really been a wonderful journey to see you.
Mhm.
And one of the things I asked you was about a gap in the market or a bottle, as I called it. And you
Yeah.
mentioned that there's a massive gap again between strategy and execution, and that
Yeah.
businesses get a lot of high level advice, but actually lack the practical tools to operationalize it.
Mhm.
How does strategy versus the execution gap hurt travel entrepreneurs? What is it that by not implementing these is costing them?
One thing that you will see in a lot of small businesses, especially, is that very much execution focused. So you know exactly that today I need to sell something. I'm just going to do the basic steps in order to sell it. So you're just basically going through the daily motions. There's no really thinking behind it. There's no planning. You just know that you're trying to make a profit. How you're going to maximize that profit, it doesn't really matter. And that's really what happens a lot. So when you find then a lot of people then go to those incubation hubs or the innovation hubs, and they'll go through some sort of program, or even if it's just someone giving them advice, and then they build like a strategy, for example. So we're planning, I want to do this, but then there's no operational thinking behind it. There's no understanding what your capacity is that will allow you to execute on those goals that you've set within the strategy. And that's where a lot of people fall short, is that they have this document, can be 30 pages, 40 pages, but that usually is a very much, this is the plan, how I'm gonna get there is not really thought out 90% of the time. People don't really look at, okay, do I have the human capacity to do that? Do I have the financial resources to help me get towards that strategic goal that I've set for myself? And that's where a lot of the time you see the biggest gap is between we've written a strategy with all our goals. This is what we wish for ourselves. This is what we actually know how to do. And that's a lot of the time why you see people have that strategy, but they can't actually now make the change because they don't actually have those resources or that knowledge to allow them to, start getting the ball rolling. And so that's where a lot of my work will come in. So I will basically handhold people and be like, okay, these are the resources that we need to implement in order to help you to get to your goal. And a lot of the times that means actually hiring an additional operations person to help you close that gap. So that's basically where I see the gap most of the time, is that we spend a lot of time wishing and planning and dreaming about this end goal, but we don't actually take the time to evaluate what we actually can do and what.
When you speak about that with goal setting, you've set a different side of when it comes to the business, when you're having the capacity and the capabilities. But when people comes to setting goals, it's the same thing, is they don't realize or preempt the discomfort in going towards the goals. As you said, is the ideation phase of creating these strategies is the fun part. But when it comes to actually implementing it, and I can see the value of hand holding, is because people then kind of tap out at the boring part of the business. And this is where I also see a lot of businesses pivoting. So they'll create the strategy, they'll try something for 3 months, and then when things don't work out immediately, then they'll pivot and start the whole process all over again. So I really appreciate that you're speaking about understanding the goals and what you need to get you there.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of the times people just give up and just go back to their default, and then they're not actually growing as a business or as people at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Congratulations that you've been building momentum over the last 6 months. And it really is an accomplishment for business owners, especially the solo entrepreneurs and the
Yeah.
founders. We really understand how these things really are important. And along the journey, we have to celebrate these things because otherwise, what is the point? And you've been helping ventures with revenue planning, testing market viability, which is so important. So if we're looking at travel innovators, because a lot of the time in the travel industry, I've been in the industry for a while, and the travel professionals sit with raw data. They sit with dates of travel. They sit with demographics, so much raw data. And what I see is these owners of these companies are very business orientated. And what ends up happening is they start thinking of ideas, of apps, of solutions outside of their business. And a lot of the time, they don't even know where to start. For anyone who has a brilliant new tour concept or a unique accommodation idea, they're sometimes scared of the risk. How would you approach this?
Okay, our most important step is to just try reduce the perceived risk. The risk is always going to be there. But when you make that decision to move forward, it's about taking a calculated risk, and that's understanding what are the possible positives and what are the possible cons with going forward with that. So let's say someone wants to introduce a new travel package. I would basically pre-sell it or try get it to the market at its minimum points, just to try see who's gonna actually click on it, who's gonna actually pay for it before it actually is within their hold. Basically trying to get real life data. So we talked about data of the demographics, but getting data that tells you about what people will actually do and how people will behave is very key to reducing that perceived risk. Because if you understand that Singita will actually pay 200 Rand for this instead of 150 Rand, that's giving me data and allowing me to build on that and allowing me to maybe pivot. So let's say I had an idea of selling dark chocolate ice cream sandwiches. Then I basically put it out there, hey guys, next week Sunday I'm going to be selling dark chocolate ice cream sandwiches, pre-order, and I get maybe 2 pre-orders. That tells me something that this is maybe not the correct product for the market. maybe pivot your offering, maybe pivot the people you're trying to sell to. So I think the most important thing is trying to get as much data from the target markets to help you reduce that risk or perceived risk. Actually does help you push yourself. Once you're gathering all that information, you are, working on it, changing it there, understanding what else you need. Another problem is that we come up with ideas, but we're not actually being realistic of what we need to do in order to get that idea. So once we start doing it, we know, okay, if I want to sell ice cream, I need to have this particular certificate. So you're now also working on getting all the admin things in order, all the marketing things in order. And once you actually start doing it, that's when the risk lowers and you are able to gather more information, more data on how you're going to perform. And so that would be my advice. You need to take the steps to de-risk it, basically.
I think a lot of travel agents and travel professionals don't realize how much data they're sitting with. It's really such a golden nugget that you're saying, look at the data, look deeper into the data that you have right now that's going to show you. And also mentioning about testing it, the MVP, just getting it out as soon as possible, testing the ideas, validating the ideas. Before you start investing in developers, in designers, in any of these things, first, as you're saying, is validate these ideas that you have, because if you're going to invest all that time, you're not going to get return on investment if it's not a good idea. What you're doing is so brilliant, especially for the travel industry. It's very fast paced, very reactive. And a lot of the time, it's about sales. As you said, it's about, I need to just make sales today. And how I make sales is I need to get out proposals. Sometimes there's no focus on retention.
Mhm.
And I really would love to hear more about what you're doing. What is it like when people work with you, and how can people get in contact with you to work with you?
Okay, cool. So right now, what I'm doing, I mainly work with, I call them transitional businesses. So businesses that maybe are relocating, businesses that are realizing that they need to diversify. A lot of businesses that are like at a mature stage, I need to kind of shift. So I'm working with businesses in tourism and hospitality industry, a lot of NPOs and social enterprises, as well as retailers. So basically what it looks like is I basically work with you on developing those new ways of doing things and the way to pivot, coming up with the go-to-market strategy and developing your operational model. A lot of the time people don't realize what else they need. So I work a lot with developing also like the partnership side. A lot of small businesses are very blind to the benefits of having partners, and not necessarily like a business partner, but other people in the industry where you can work with them to try grow what you're doing and grow your revenue. So work a lot with that. So right now where people can reach me is I am on LinkedIn, on my personal LinkedIn accounts, which is Singita Chauke. Also the business uncle does have a LinkedIn page. We're working on the website. I think it should be live by the end of this week. Should be at www.thebusinessesuncle.com. I will confirm that. And then we also have an Instagram page that's live, which is just at the business uncle. So before I onboard anyone or try get anyone to pay for a service, I like to just sit with them, have a one-on-one discovery call that's completely free. Usually 45 minutes to an hour, because we really go deep within what you're doing, what you're trying to achieve. And I really try to break everything down for you. So everyone is welcome to book a session with me if they would like, and then we can take it from there.
Wow. A lot of businesses don't do that for 45 minutes to an hour. So you can see that you're really invested in helping businesses, because sometimes you can see businesses that just come in and start making changes and start making suggestions without doing that discovery and understanding. And also in that session, it's also about alignment to see if there is actually alignment. So I can really, that's amazing that you're doing that. You also spoke about partnerships. It's so, so, so relevant, especially for travel. Because if I can't service this client, let's say, for example, I'm a boutique agency, or maybe I'm a more of a backpackers vibe, those two people have very different clientele. And if a client comes to you and you're like, oh, I actually don't service these kinds of clients, sorry, I can't help you, that's not good business.
Mhm.
If you have people and partners in the actual industry and you say, actually, we don't service that, but I do have a partner or a company that I can recommend, that is concierge service. The client
Yeah.
is going to remember that you helped them and didn't just leave them. It's that typical thing of when you call a helpline and then you get transferred to 1,000 different people.
Mm.
We don't want that to happen. We want to be able to service them. So you really have a full, robust offering. You spoke about pivoting, and it's so important to recognize that we don't want to pivot too much. We're not pivoting because we're bored. We're pivoting because it's necessary. And I think that's a
Yes.
very, very cool space to be in to help people that are ready to pivot or grow. So thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you on my show.
Thank you. It was really great to finally be on this podcast. I'm hoping I could be able to connect with more of your audience and just hopefully one day even come back. It was really great to be here. I think I remember when you were talking about it and to finally see it actually live on a second season. It's just amazing.
Thank you. Yes, you really have been there from the beginning of my business experience and this journey. And it's been so wonderful to have you supporting me and all your care. And it's just been wonderful. And now it's your turn for your business. And it's been so wonderful watching you. And it's just amazing. So you keep shining, girl. It's been amazing to have you on my show. Thank you so much for your seat at the table.
Thank
And until next time, to my listeners, thank you for joining us. Be safe and have fun.